Hi Homeworthy, I'm Carly. Welcome to my West Village apartment. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
I'm Carly Beck, I'm an artist, and we're in the West Village. This is a railroad apartment and I've lived here for 17 years. And the building was built in 1890. Originally when I bought this apartment, it was pretty much a white box. The kitchen had indoor-outdoor carpeting, old appliances. All the details that are originally here have been stripped out of the apartment. So I, over the last 17 years, have been adding back in the details with wood trimming, crown molding, medallions around the light fixtures, just trying to make it look like it was bringing those elements of the past back in. So when I came to New York, I originally lived on the east side of Manhattan and then worked for Diane von Furstenberg, and she was on the west side of Manhattan. I really wanted to find a special place in the West Village. So I looked around with a couple of friends and found this space, and not many people want to live in a fifth floor walk-up, but I didn't mind it. I still don't mind it. And I kind of think of this place like a little nest on top of this building with like a tree-lined street. So originally this room was painted schoolhouse white, Pharaoh and Ball, for years. And it just never seemed warm or cozy. And this is where I work. So I paint over at the table over there, and I just needed it to be more vibrant. So I did this collection with the Carlisle Hotel. This wallpaper is paying homage to the gallery room at the Carlisle Hotel, and I thought with all of these colors, and I love flowers, but it's still kind of muted in a way. It's a darker floral, not as many. A lot of my florals are brighter, so I thought that this would really set the mood for this room, and it has. It's totally changed the apartment, because before it didn't seem like, with a railroad, it's hard to design and make something look like separate rooms because it's just basically one long hallway. And adding the wallpaper element in, it adds this dimension that creates a separation from the kitchen and the bedroom. The kitchen originally had blue outdoor-indoor carpeting situation, a big white refrigerator right here blocking the light, an old stove. The cabinets were really like short and didn't make any sense because you can get a lot of storage out of this space. So I added in the cabinets that are a lot taller, that go basically up to the ceiling. I did everything kind of like I wanted to look like furniture. I have the dishwasher here hidden underneath this panel. I did the refrigerator drawers and then a larger refrigerator there, and then the mini stove. So everything is more compact and it gives me a lot of counter space. Then I added in the stained glass window to give privacy, and it just like brings in the most beautiful light. I created the stained glass piece with an artist in Kansas, and I wanted it to take the colors from the wallpaper but also have a very organic element to it. So the spider works to add a little bit of sparkle because the spider's body is beveled, and it just gives it an organic look to it to match the floral wallpaper. I chose two different shades of green for the kitchen. For the cabinets, I did breakfast room green, and then for the walls, I did whirly-bird, but they're like in the same tones. And I wanted green because I wanted this kitchen to feel like a garden, not really like a kitchen, more like a garden space. And then I put in these custom shelves here to add more storage, and it doesn't block the light. So it's a good way to get more storage in and have the light still shine through, so it wasn't so dark in the kitchen. Another design element is I took one of my wallpaper prints and wallpapered inside this cabinet just to add a little more touch of a garden element with the floral motif. And it just makes me like really happy whenever I open this up, and I wanted it to feel like it had always been there. The little animal cups here are from Hadley in Louisville, Kentucky, and we had these when I was growing up, and I just love how sweet they are. And then this little mouse holding the cheese is super special to me because I do a lot of work for Kitchen Mouse in Los Angeles. It's a vegan restaurant. It's absolutely incredible. And they have this particular mouse in their shop. Getting rid of the huge old refrigerator was my favorite thing about the kitchen, because I can get a ton of space. This is the freezer, this is another refrigerator door, this is another refrigerated space, and I actually have more room than I did before with the larger refrigerator, and a ton more counter space. I did wide plank wood flooring throughout the rest of the apartment, and this particular space, because it's such an old building, everything is shifting all the time. So I did a laminate that looks like the metal from the original metal door. So you're just taking that element of the shine here and putting it on the floor. For the backsplash, I did like a typical New York subway tile, but it's a little different. I did a darker grout, and they have kind of like a more like glossy handmade quality to them that adds it's a simple, clean element that also looks very much New York City. My mom, on a recent trip to New York, we went to the new designed Tiffany's, and Breakfast at Tiffany's is one of my favorite movies, and she surprised me by picking up these little espresso cups, which I absolutely love. The bathroom is the smallest room in the apartment. I added this wallpaper print that I did called Anne's Garden, and I painted the ceiling fruitful. It's from the Liberty collection of Farrell and Ball. Added the ceiling medallion. I added in the wainscoting to add a more textural element, so it just felt like a little bit more of a dressed up room. This painting is one of my Beauty Junkie series, where I profile different beauty products in a medicine cabinet. It's just like a series that I do for different companies, and I love having it here in the bathroom as I'm getting ready. I originally majored in political science and Spanish and worked on Capitol Hill for a few years, and then decided that my heart was really in design. So I moved to New York City and went to FIT and started interning for designers that I just completely coveted. And it was a completely different time in fashion, where there were so many more contemporary designers, and you could just go learn from them, which was incredible. And then I started working for Diane von Furstenberg for many years, and then other fashion houses, and started my own handbag company that I produced in New York and then Los Angeles. And then in 2016, my grandmother was an artist, and I've always loved to draw and, I don't know, go to museums, and I just felt like this need to start painting. So I got to paint by numbers and learned how to kind of see color and paint from there. And then I had all this leftover paint, and I decided to use that paint and keep painting, and I've painted every day since. My work are based around pets, and I largely do pet portrait commissions. I do acrylic on canvas with some gouache, and I like to use lots of color. My pets are wearing clothes, they're in interesting places, they're shopping at Bergdorf's, they're drinking martinis at Bemelman's, or they're in LA at the beach surfing. It's just, I get to travel the world through these pets. So this was the first painting I did after the paint by numbers, and it is my very ancient 16-year-old cat, Addie, who is truly my muse. Any project that I do, I usually pop her in somewhere. I did a children's book called The Lost Brills of Lexington, and she is one of the main characters as Mrs. Small. She's in the wallpaper print called The Upper East Side that I did for the Carlisle Hotel. She's just kind of like my little good luck charm. Let's go into my living room. First of all, I always do kind of a large floral arrangement here to create a division between the kitchen and the living room. And then you walk into the space here. I have a seating area and then my workstation. I added in these bookshelves and painted them black to create more dimension, and it's a nice contrast with the wallpaper. And then I use this as more storage. It's a desk that folds down. I did the calendar for 2022 for the Carlisle Hotel, and the September image was a bulldog drinking a glass of tea in the gallery room at the Carlisle. Behind the bulldog was a deconstructed floral print from the gallery room, and I took that image and then blew up the idea of it and created this wallpaper print. So this stripe motif is in the gallery room at the Carlisle, and then the flowers are either in vases or in a different format. So I took everything out of the vase and kind of threw it in this weird pattern and created this wallpaper with Wall Shop. Everything in this apartment is collected throughout travels or childhood memories. Everything is like super special to me. This printed lampshade I got in Louisville, Kentucky, where my aunt lives. These Staffordshire dogs are from Kansas, where I grew up. This is one of the paintings that I did for the Carlisle Hotel for the calendar, and it's dogs and cats celebrating their Tony Award win and Cafe Carlisle. As you do. This painting I got in Kansas. I love the stormy skies, the darkness of it. It's kind of a haunted image on top of like all the sweet. It's like a little surprise element. The main reason why I really wanted this apartment is just because it had such an amazing energy to it. I mean, I loved all the windows and how quiet it is. And it feels like you're not in the city when you're actually in the heart of the city. So this is Addie. She's my 16-year-old cat, and she goes everywhere with me. Addie is from Kansas, where I grew up, and my mom found this litter of kittens, and she had a tuxedo cat brother, and then Addie, and then another sister, and I just said, you have to go get the whole litter, Mom, rescue them, because there's just something so special about these cats. Addie has a lot of health issues, and she's really like put me on a total journey with her health journey, and we're just happy that she's alive. So this is my main living space, which is not very big, but I wanted the furniture to be somewhat petite, so you were not really thinking about the furniture. It was just kind of like a secondary element and adding in lots of like pattern and texture. I have kind of like a denim fabric here on these chairs with a bamboo print, very open, so it kind of goes back to the garden theme. This large ottoman that I use as kind of like a dining room table. The sofa from the John Daring collection I love in a velvet with the velvet pillows. And then I have other like more embellished pillows stacked beneath to show like a little element of like vintage textiles and shine. And the rug is just super neutral because I didn't want it to really take away from the wallpaper. Added in more like metallic shine with the mirror and the vintage bird cage and the metal table here with the bamboo print that goes back to the chairs. So everything kind of like makes sense in its own way, and it's like it's so all over the place. It just makes sense. I don't know how, but to me it just seems like it's all meant to go together. If I could change one thing about this living room, I would definitely make it bigger. I often fantasize about knocking out this wall and taking over the space, even though there's a brick wall right there. I just would like to have a little bit more room, but the wallpaper has added a dimension to the room that made it feel bigger, and that's something the paint never did. So what I do to have fun in New York is I love to go on walks. I walk for at least like an hour and a half to 2 hours a day, depending when I finish my work for the day or I'm taking a break from the work. I like to walk up to Central Park, or I like to walk on the West Side Highway. And then it's the most rewarding thing to come back in here because it's quiet and it feels like I'm bringing elements of the outside back into the apartment, but in a way that it's very calming. One terrible story while decorating this place, and another reason why I added the wood beams in, is when they were adding a roof deck on top of this building. Gorgeous, it looks incredible, but during that process, my ceiling caved in. I kind of had to rethink things. Luckily, they rebuilt the ceiling, but it never looked quite right again. It was a little wavy, so I added the beams in to add to the old world charm of it. And here's my workspace. It's an old farm table that has tons of paint all over it. I have paintings I'm working on here, additional canvases, more canvas storage here. This is where I keep all my paints, my brushes. I always like to have a movie on or something that inspires me, whether the volume's up or down. It's just nice to have a TV right there. And I work pretty much exclusively right here. So what inspires me, like not only like other artists, but also fashion designers. Like Marc Jacobs is one of my favorite designers, and I'm also very inspired by textiles and I love film. So I kind of take all of those elements, like my love of fashion, my love of textiles, my love of film, and add it into my works. So this is one of my works that is acrylic on canvas. And I like to feature lots of different animals in New York City scenes. So this is Pillow Cat Books on the Lower East Side, one of my favorite children's bookstores, and they have lots of like vintage books. And then when I do a piece on paper, these are just like little 9x12s on paper, all inspired by the Carlisle Hotel. And then I also like to do wood box dioramas. So one of my favorite paintings, or that I'm most proud of, is I really love this black and white with the bunnies being in color, because I am from Kansas and I am super inspired by the Wizard of Oz. And it's, I like this very moody Gothic scene, and then these bright, happy animals. Working in art in New York City is, I feel like, the best place to work, because it's such a supportive community and you're just inspired by absolutely everything constantly all around you. And you're never like, there's never not inspiration. I think the hardest part of it though is that it is a very isolating job. And that's why walking and meeting up with friends is so nice, because you can just get stuck in your own environment, wrapped up in the work, and kind of ignore the outside world. And it's nice to be in the city because the city offers so much, and it's a nice break from the work. The farm table is from Kansas, which is nice because it is mostly like very farm inspired, everything there. And it's an element of home that I get to work with every day. I go back and forth a lot to my parents' house in Kansas, and I find a lot of inspiration there as well, because everything is pretty flat, simple, it's calm, and I like to also do larger works there that have a lot more characters, because I think that atmosphere of being so calm on the prairie really like aids in creating larger works. My favorite room in the house is this room, the living room, because this is where I paint, this is where like I read. I love this room. It's such a cozy environment and so inspiring for my work. This is my bedroom, which is similar to the kitchen because it's color drenched, and this color is Hazy by Farrell and Ball. And I absolutely love it because it plays so well with other pastel colors, and it's super calming. I didn't initially have this room color drenched. I had painted these were black before. This room has probably been, I don't know, like 30 different colors. I've never really like settled on anything. And I just thought, well, what if I paint the ceiling, the moldings, everything the same color? And I absolutely love it. I can't ever foresee changing it. I mean, I can't say forever. Sometimes I want to do pink, but I think it's going to stay this color. These are two interior paintings that I did for my friend's store in Brooklyn called Collier's Mansion. And we made them into trays. I framed the originals in these antique gold frames. Inspiration for interior paintings come from everywhere. Like, I'm constantly taking photos and getting ideas, and then I love to just pair colors together that might not necessarily go together, using a really bright background and then muting down the furniture, doing like an animal print here. Of course, there's Addie in different like versions of Addie right here and right there, and it all just kind of works. I always like to do like a large scale mini portrait within a portrait, showing the outside world with like trees and lots of books. And I just like creating these because they're little mini worlds. In this room, I've done mirrored furniture because I wanted it to feel very delicate and feminine. And then I have these antique sconces and antique little sketchings from my grandparents. And then to make it look more modern, I did a neon candle. I have these different picture frames here to add more elements of shine and color. And this is my first painting that I ever did with my paint by numbers paint. So it's a nice little reminder of where I started with, of course, my favorite cat, and then another organic element with the butterflies. And I just think that this is like a really sweet vignette here with the sconces and the floral butterfly lamp. Everything just kind of makes sense. Originally, I had built-in bookcases here that never really actually made sense because it took so much space from the bedroom, which is a nice size for the West Village, but it's not huge. And I wanted a window seat for Addie or for me to sit in and just to create some more dimension. I love these old windows and the fire escape and the trees, so it's nice to sit here. And then there's the radiator there, so you can't really do much, but I love how this works out as more of a usable space than it did before. This is another one of my favorite paintings. It's Breakfast at Tiffany's. I love the cat with her little croissant and her cup of coffee, and a velvet headboard that I love velvet, and it's so easy to have with pets. This is a throw of the Upper East Side print that I developed for the Carlisle Hotel, and I just love the bright colors and the imagery here of the hotel and 76th Street and the Upper East Side. So this is like, it's really nice to pair back with the zebra carpet. And then over here, more mirrored pieces for storage. Here's an antique lamp from my grandparents. I love the crystals. It like brings the most beautiful light in the afternoon. Here's more little antique lamps here. I just love to source things all over the country. Going to antique shops is one of my favorite things to do. Not only inspiration for the paintings, but just bringing little things back to the home. My favorite thing about the West Village is first the architecture, and next is just the community. It's such a supportive community. It feels like you're actually in a small town, even though you're in the heart of the big city. Designing a home with a pet in mind is not easy because one, they can be like a little hard on furniture, and two, you don't want to like have a litter box out in the middle of the apartment. So I have the litter box hidden between the window and the refrigerator in the kitchen. She has a kitty water fountain over there, but I'm just like super mindful of the textiles. Cats don't usually like to scratch velvet, so I have the velvet couch, I have the velvet headboard, and it just makes it a little bit more pet friendly. Home means to me color, pattern, and warmth. Any room that has, I love color drenching, I love wallpapers. Anything that creates a very cozy environment is a home to me. Thank you, Homeworthy, for touring my home. It was so nice having you, but I've got to get back to painting.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.